Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Diggie. Today we're going to make some cabbage roll soup, which a lot of you are probably familiar with traditional rolled cabbage, where you got to blanch the cabbage and stuff them full of a tasty rice, meat, tomato mixture. But today we're going to do that a lot simpler and achieve the same taste uh, without skills from the old country. So let's apron up and we'll get it going. I had a lot of fun yesterday making that first video and I got a lot of positive feedback, so I'm making another one today and my mind's kind of racing. I got a lot more recipes to share with you guys, so I'm glad everybody's liking it and I hope you guys stay tuned in. Let me run you over the ingredients right now, and I will also post a list of those in the description from now on. Alright, we got about 2 pounds of ground beef, already chopped some onions. We got some garlic. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 cloves of garlic. I went ahead and left those whole because for me on a tomato dish, I really like the flavor of whole garlic. We are gonna end up using about 4 cups of beef broth. Got a dirty cabbage right here. I'll show you how to prepare that. And then we got oregano, basil, and thyme, and some Worcestershire sauce. So provided you already have these 4 ingredients, this meal runs really cheap, but it'll feed you up and it'll keep you full for quite a while. So yeah, come on, let's do it to it. So this cabbage was about 99 cents, which is pretty cool to me. I've always liked cabbage. Whenever I have it, I picture the Bubba from Forrest Gump, you know, and all the versatile ways it can be maintained and ingested. You got all kinds of different cabbage dishes, and so it's fun to experiment with, and maybe it's just my Irish roots, but I like it a whole lot. Although it always ends up coming a little bit dirty, so you got to take it under the wash there, peel off the outer layers, and then I'll show you how to decore it and cut it into sixths. I'm going to turn on the saute function over here and get the garlic and onions in there. And wait for that oil to heat up a little bit before I put those in. You never want to put your ingredients into cold oil. Alright, we got our garlic and our onion sauteing in there, coming along nicely. That's about to the spot where I want to get it. I'm actually going to throw in the ground beef first. Plop that right in there. And then we're going to stir that up a tad to make sure that starts browning. We don't want the onion and the garlic to burn, because burnt garlic is bad garlic. And again, hopefully that'll quiet down a little bit. I actually might put some beef broth in there. There we go, that should suffice. Get it nice and mixed up. I really love what ground beef and tomato sauce, or tomato paste and diced tomatoes do when they get a chance to play. Let's go over and take care of the cabbage. So I know we worked on some knife skills yesterday as far as cutting an onion goes. This here is just a $12 knife from Walmart. It's trusty. It's not the highest quality you're ever going to find, but honestly, it's a thin piece of metal that divides food into tinier portions for, you know, easy chewing. So at a certain point, you kind of just gotta love what you got and learn how to use it. So a lot of people think of this as a sharpening steel, whereas technically it's not. It's you're gonna sharpen your blades on with a different method, and then what this thing actually does is that it hones the edge. So if you were to sharpen your blade down to as sharp as you can get it, there would be a tiny little barb or burr of metal on the edge there. And what this does, as you draw it at a consistent angle, it folds that back and forth until that falls off, leaving you with the sharpest edge possible. And that's going to be true to whatever quality knife that you have. You're gonna know when you want to get a new knife is when you start getting chips and cracks, and there's ways to prevent this sort of stuff, like don't run it through the dishwasher. You know, always hand wash your knives and take care of them, because this is the most important thing you got in your kitchen, apart from the food, of course. All right, so sharp knife is a safe knife. Safe knife. What you're going to want to do is hold it with these 3 fingers and then pinch the blade, and it gives you lots of control. So you don't want to be holding the knife like this because that's no control. So you're going to want to pinch it like that, and then you're going to have, it's just going to be an extension of your arm. So this is specifically important when we're working with cabbages because honestly, I feel safe with a knife because none of my arteries are close to, you know, all the good arteries are in my neck, and I usually cut pretty far away from them. But when it comes to a cabbage, you just kind of have this strange orb, and you got to get this out of there. So I usually, keeping my hand safe, holding it down, I plunge in, and then I just kind of work it in like that. Pull that out safely, plunge it in again, work it out, pull it out. You're not going to want to hold the cabbage like that. Always think about where the knife is going to go if things slip or if things go wrong, and keep your hands well out of the way, because I joke about it a lot, but cutting your hand in the kitchen not only really sucks, but it makes you feel like a noob, and that's no fun. So now that we've done that, we've taken out the middle part, the kind of non-tasty, I don't know, put it in the trash, you know. All right, so we got that, and then now you've made yourself a more stable, safer cabbage. So what we're gonna do for this dish, we're just gonna cut it right down the middle, nice crispy cabbage, and then we're gonna cut it into 3s. So see if I can move this over a tad. All right, there we go. It's a little bit nicer. So we're gonna cut this 1, 2, flip it around, and cut it into a 3rd. So now we have 3 little wedges of cabbage. I'm gonna take the other one. 1, 2, 3. And that's all we gotta do. That's the way that it's gonna go in this dish, and you'll see it falls apart on its own. So you can break it up now or break it up later. The 241 degrees of the Instant Pot is gonna take care of it regardless. So you're gonna get a nice texture when all is said and done. And I'm actually gonna take that and throw it straight into the pot. Hold on. There we go. So we can get that out of our way. And for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna cut once more down there, watching the fingers. That goes in the pot. Now all we have to do is add our tomato and rice, spices, and Worcestershire sauce, and we'll be good to go. Well, let's do that. So this tiny little massacre right here is now the onion, garlic, beef, cabbage, and tomato paste added in. We're gonna take our big old can of petite diced tomatoes. They don't have to be petite, but sounded cute when I bought it, so I went with those. You can just use standard non-cute if you like. At this point, I like to dust in the rice because this is also going to have a rice component to it. So just get that in there. All right, good to go. Then we get our Worcestershire sauce. I usually just kind of do this by feel because I don't think there's such thing as too much Worcestershire sauce. Or at least if there is, I haven't found it yet. I'll let that go in there until the smell becomes overpowering. And then we're gonna throw in our spices. What do we got? We got some basil. Throw that on in. We got some thyme without the lid on it, so we need to take our time and put that in slowly. Oregano is going to be the last. These are going to be pretty standard spices when they're going into Italian type dishes, and they marry really well with these flavors. So at this point, I got to put in some beef stock, if I can open it with one hand. All right, in goes the beef stock. shooting for about 4 cups of that, or once it starts to hit, I'll show you the line that I'm looking for. Looks like they're going to be one and the same. So that's exactly the line that I'm looking for. So it took about four cups. Obviously, the bigger your cabbage is, the more it's going to displace, so the less you're going to need. But in the end, that's about as much as you want. And then my friend Sarah reminded me that this dish also takes bay leaves. So I'm going to put, actually let's stir it up first. Should suffice. Everything's going to get cooked. And then we put these little bay leaves on top. You want to leave these whole because the ultimate goal is to take them out when you're done. Nobody wants to be eating bay leaves, but everybody agrees that it's a good flavor. I'm still on the fence about it. But anywho, 2 bay leaves it is. Well, one thing I wanted to note is that on the inside of the Instant Pot you have this O-ring that seals in there. And since I've owned the Instant Pot, and then some of the Instant Pots some of my friends have had, the O-ring has gone, it ceases to serve its function, and it no longer seals. So I would put the timer on, then it would, this timer's not supposed to count down until the seal is actually formed, but I've had instances where it just starts counting down, even though there's this little pin is not up. So that's obviously a problem because it's just in there boiling your food. It's not cooking it at the high temperature and quickly like you want it. So it'll result in undercooked food. So right now we're going to click manual, 23 minutes. Magically, it's already there. Wait about 3 seconds for that to turn on. There we go. And this thing's going to start to heat up and do what we want it to do. Interesting to note, there was a habit forming in the Instant Pot community that when this thing starts to wiggle, that you just push down on the lid itself. And some people came back and said, don't do that because it traps pockets of cool air in there, or traps more air in there. And you don't want that because that will result in your food not getting cooked as well. So make sure that this thing is down, facing the left, and then just let it do its thing. So even when this starts to wiggle, just let it be. All right, so that's going to do its thing, and in about 23 minutes after it comes up to pressure, we'll open it up and see what that looks like and portion it out into our meal prep containers. See you guys then. All right, gang, this is going to be the end of the video. Been about 46 minutes since that came down to pressure. You can kind of hear it gurgling a little bit. What it's doing right now is called a natural pressure release. So I can flip that little thing and it'll spit out some steam and some water vapor, or I can just let it come down on its own. Really, the only reason, from what I've seen, the only reason to let it come down on its own is if you're cooking a meat or something else like that. If you're making some ribs, you don't want to do the quick pressure release, the QPR, because it makes the meat a little bit dry. But with something like this, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So you can go ahead and grab a rag or something like that. I just used whatever spoon I was using and tip it in that direction. The steam is not fun to get on your hands, so definitely make sure you get the rag. Oh. Let that happen. Once that comes down to pressure, when it's pressurized, the lid is actually locked by that pin in there, so you're not going to be able to open it without doing this first. I don't suppose you'd want to, but just so you know, that's how this is done. So it's going to drop, and you're going to hear a tick when the little pin goes down. Then we'll pop her open, and hopefully it looks like food. And once it gets down to a low enough pressure, you don't need the rag on top. We'll wait for this bad boy to click down. I know this is very exciting. It smells really good though. That's one thing I really like about the Instant Pot, is that whatever you cook, it kind of makes your house smell like that, both when it's coming up to pressure and when it's releasing. As long as you're cooking the nummy stuff. I cooked lamb broth in here one time with lamb bones, and I'll never do that again in my my life or the next. It was terrible, and the whole house stunk. So there we go. All right, so that's down. Pop her on open. A little bit of liquid's gonna drop in there. And that's what we got. Let's give her a stir. Oh, let's take out those bay leaves. Alright, so everything's cooked all to high hell, and it's going to taste kind of like a pizza. And this will portion out to about 10 portions. I think it's between $1 or $2, especially if you don't have the, or if you already have the Worcestershire sauce and the seasonings. You're pretty much good to go. This will hold you over for 10 meals, however long that takes you. I don't know how many meals you eat per day, but saving a lot of money and a lot of time. And honestly, this stuff's better than what you're going to find, taste-wise, this stuff's better than what you're going to find in the restaurants. So, alright guys, thank you very much for hanging out with me, and tune in for the next video.